On November 17, 2021, a man walked into a cookie shop in South Memphis and did not walk out. That man was Dolph Thornton Jr., known to the world as Young Dolph, and his death sits at the center of a Memphis rap war that has now produced convictions, assassinations, and sentences that are still being handed down to this day. The story of how Young Dolph ended up dead inside Makita's homemade butter cookies is not a simple one. It involves two rival record labels, a rejected deal, years of shootings, a $100,000 bounty allegedly placed by the brother of one of Memphis's biggest rap moguls, and a cycle of retaliation that has left multiple people dead or locked up for life. So let us go back to the beginning and trace every step of this Memphis gang war. The rise of two kings, Dolph, Gotti, and the roots of a war. To understand the war that killed Young Dolph, you have to understand Memphis. Memphis rap is a regional subgenre of hip-hop music that originated in Memphis, Tennessee during the mid to late 1980s. It has been characterized as being low budget, using repetitive vocal hooks and a lo-fi soundscape that uses the Roland TR-808 drum machine and minimal synth melodies. The city has always had its own sound, dark, heavy, and born out of environments that most people would not choose to live in. Early artists and groups associated with Memphis rap include Project Pat, 8 Ball and MJG, and 3 6 Mafia, with the latter two achieving relative commercial success and even an Oscar. But by the 2010s, two names dominated conversations about Memphis hip-hop, Yo Gotti and Young Dolph. Yo Gotti, born Mario Mims, had been in the game for decades. Yo Gotti is a Memphis rap legend. Alongside 3 6 Mafia, he's helped transform Memphis from a city most well known for Elvis Presley into a city with a thriving rap scene. He built Collective Music Group, or CMG, into a label that would eventually house artists like Moneybagg Yo, Black Youngsta, Glorilla, and SG. CMG became a powerhouse, one of the most recognizable brands in Southern hip-hop, and Gotti routinely referred to himself as the King of Memphis. That title was not just a phrase. In Memphis, it carried weight. It meant influence, money, respect, and territory, both in the music industry and allegedly in the streets. Then there was Young Dolph. Dolph Robert Thornton Jr. was born on July 27, 1985, in Chicago, Illinois. When he was 2 years old, his family moved to Memphis, Tennessee. Growing up in the Castalia Heights neighborhood of South Memphis, Young Dolph faced numerous challenges. His parents struggled with addictions to crack cocaine, leading to his grandmother, Ida Mae, becoming his primary caregiver. Castalia Heights is a small, predominantly black neighborhood in South Memphis, a Kellogg's breakfast cereal plant and railroad tracks. A friend of Dolph's described the neighborhood as an island unto itself within South Memphis. This was where Dolph was shaped. This was where his worldview was formed. Under his grandmother Ida Mae's roof, he was kept in line. He joined the usher board at church. He had curfews, but the streets around him told a different story. Dolph has openly admitted that he has been a target of violence since his teenage years. "I've been targeted since I was 17, 18, 19, he stated in an interview with The Guardian. He didn't hide what he came from. The rapper admitted that he did not grow up in the best surroundings, which caused him to turn to specific methods to make money. When asked how, he responded, "Hustling. You've been seeing it for so long that you start to partake in it. I clocked in when I was 12 and never clocked out." In 2008, Dolph survived a car accident that nearly killed him. Shortly after, his grandmother Ida Mae passed away from lung cancer. It was these series of incidents that made Dolph take his life and career more serious. With so much going on, he found comfort in the studio, where he decided to release his pain through his music. In 2008, due to encouragement from his friends, Young Dolph released his first mixtape, Paper Route Campaign. Seeing its local popularity, he decided to fully invest himself into rap. 2 years later, he formally established his label, Paper Route Empire, in 2010, an independent record label inspired by the likes of Master P and Baby. This is a detail that matters. Dolph did not sign to a major label. He did not sign to another artist's imprint. He built his own thing. That decision, to stay independent, would become the core of his identity, and, allegedly, the core of the beef that would eventually get him killed. Young Dolph is another rapper from Memphis, and though he may not be a household name, he's undoubtedly some serious competition for Gotti as the King of Memphis. He's a self-made millionaire who often boasts about his refusal to sign to anyone, and the musical accomplishments he's made without a label is indeed impressive. Through the early 2010s, Dolph released a steady stream of mixtapes: High Class Street Music, A Time to Kill, Blue Magic, South Memphis Kingpin. Following multiple collaborations along with a personal connection with Atlanta trap rapper Gucci Mane, Young Dolph released the collaboration mixtape East Atlanta Memphis. He was building a name, he was building a brand. He was doing it from South Memphis on his own terms, and people in the city noticed. Now here is where everything starts to connect. In the case of Memphis rappers Young Dolph and Yo Gotti, many believe the catalyst was Dolph turning down a CMG record deal back in 2014. So it only makes sense that Yo Gotti would sign up-and-coming local star, Young Dolph, to his record label imprint CMG. Dolph turned down Gotti's offer. Later that year, he appeared on Sway in the Morning and justified his decision by saying he didn't want to latch onto Yo Gotti's movement, but instead, he wanted to create his own path. Dolph claims this started the rivalry between the two rappers. Now, to be fair, there is a lot of nuance here, and people on both sides have said different things about what really started the tension. But the general timeline that most sources agree on is this. Yo Gotti tried to sign Young Dolph to CMG. Dolph said no, and from that rejection, a rift formed that would grow wider and wider until bullets started flying. Dolph recalled his first meeting with Gotti, where Gotti used collective music groups Zilla and Starlito to convince him to join CMG Records. "This my first time meeting you," said Dolph. "And you going to really sit and downplay your artists and throw your artists under the bus to try to persuade me in to come over there?" That encounter apparently left a bad taste in Dolph's mouth. He saw it as disrespectful, not just to him, but to the artist Gotti already had under contract. And in Memphis, disrespect has consequences. For a while, the tension stayed below the surface. Both men were making music. Both were stacking money. Memphis is a big city, but the rap scene is small. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone is connected through neighborhoods, family, history, or the streets. And when two of the biggest names in the city start to have problems, the entire ecosystem feels it. Now, what makes this story particularly complex is the alleged involvement of people behind the scenes. Not just Yo Gotti, but his brother Anthony Mims, known as Big Jook. Anthony Big Jook Mims, 47, was the older brother of noted Memphis rapper and record label mogul Yo Gotti, aka Mario Mims. Anthony Mims was actively involved in Gotti's record company, the Collective Music Group, or CMG label. It's not known what Anthony Mims's official title with the label was, or if he had one. Big Jook, by multiple accounts, was not just Yo Gotti's brother. He was allegedly a significant figure in the operations behind CMG. He was seen at events, in music videos, at industry functions. He was often seen at the side of the label's artists at various events. And industry sources indicate he was involved in scouting talent, helping manage and promoting projects for the company. But Big Jook's reputation in Memphis allegedly extended beyond the music industry. And this is where we need to be careful, because a lot of what circulates about Big Jook is rumor, speculation, and courtroom testimony from individuals who had their own motivations for speaking. What is clear, however, is that his name would eventually be at the center of the Young Dolph murder case, and that prosecutors would allege he was the person who put the hit out on Dolph. We will get to that. But first, the beef had to go from subliminal to visible. The roots of the Dolph-Gotti feud began more than a decade ago. In 2014, Dolph, then just emerging as a mixtape artist, began saying publicly that he had turned down an offer to join Gotti's CMG record label. The initial phase of the beef was subtle. Dolph would make comments in interviews. Gotti would stay quiet. The tension simmered, but it did not boil over. Not yet. What is worth noting is the broader context. Memphis in the 2010s was experiencing a significant surge in gang activity. In 2021, there were approximately 102 gangs with 1,300 gang members in the city. Gangs in the Memphis area are concentrated in high-crime black neighborhoods: Orange Mound, Whitehaven, Binghamton, Klondike, and Smoky City. The city's music and its street culture were deeply intertwined. Music styles that originated from Memphis gangsta rap culture include Young Dolph, Moneybagg Yo, Pooh Shiesty, Big 30, Southern hip-hop, and crunk, made famous by 8 Ball and MJG, 3-6 Mafia, Project Pat, and Hypnotized Minds. When rappers in Memphis had beef, it was not always just about music. Labels allegedly represented affiliations, neighborhoods represented allegiances, and the lines between entertainment and the streets were allegedly very blurred. The Mims family itself had deep roots in Memphis. Bovin, a well-known Memphis cocaine kingpin in the 1980s and head of the Bovin family, was a former partner of the aunt of Yo Gotti and Big Jook. So the family's connections to Memphis's street history went back decades. This is not to say that Yo Gotti was personally involved in anything illegal. He has never been charged with any crime related to Dolph's murder or any gang activity, but it is to say that the world he came from, and the world his brother allegedly operated in, was a world where the line between rap and the streets was reportedly very thin. Dolph, on his side, was also reportedly no stranger to that world. He made music about it, he spoke about it in interviews, he lived it. His label, Paper Route Empire, or PRE, was not just a music company, it was a movement. It represented South Memphis. It represented independence, and it represented a direct challenge to CMG's dominance in the city. Prosecutors claimed the shooting was part of a rap feud between Dolph's Paper Route Empire, PRE label, and Yo Gotti's Collective Music Group, CMG, aka Cocaine Music Group. 2 labels, 2 crews, 1 city. The stage was set for escalation. The year 2016 is when the Memphis beef went from subliminal to very, very public. On February 11th, 2016, Dolph stirred the pot when he took to Twitter and tweeted, "Bra went from being my Water 1 fan and wanting to sign me to being my biggest hater are facts." Although he didn't directly mention Yo Gotti's name, it was quite clear who he directed his aggression at. This tweet landed at a very specific moment. At the beginning of February 2016, Yo Gotti finally announced the release date for his highly anticipated album, The Art of Hustle. The album, which Gotti's hyped for several years, would finally see the light of day later that month. February 19th, coincidentally or not, about a week after Gotti made his announcement, and a day before Dolph took to Twitter to label Gotti his biggest hater. On February 9th, Dolph broke the news that his new album will also be released on February 19th. And what was the album called? King of Memphis. Titled King of Memphis, this was a phrase commonly used by Yo Gotti in reference to himself. Although Gotti declined a response, the rap community assumed this was a direct shot from Dolph to Gotti, as his aspirations now aimed at dethroning Gotti. Now, Dolph himself gave mixed signals about the title. Later that same month, during a larger press run including appearances on Hot 97's Ebro in the Morning and The Breakfast Club, Dolph attempted to squash any beef rumors with Gotti by claiming that their rivalry has been really overstated. When asked about the album name, Dolph said everyone should think of themselves as kings. He framed it as aspirational, not confrontational. But the streets read it differently, and so did Gotti's camp. The feud took an ugly turn the following month, when Black Youngsta, a talent Yo Gotti would sign to his CMG label in 2015, following the unsuccessful attempt at signing Dolph the year prior, took to Instagram with threats directed at young Dolph. On March 2nd, 2016, CMG signee Black Youngsta started to go at young Dolph, threatening to slap him if he ever saw him in person. This was not a diss track. This was a man on camera, in the streets, making direct threats. Through 2016, the bickering was largely between Dolph and members of Gotti's camp, namely CMG signed artist Black Youngsta, who threw a Dolph diss into one of his tracks, and filmed a video of himself prowling Dolph's South Memphis neighborhood heavily armed. Later that same day, Youngsta showed up in South Memphis to stroll through Dolph's neighborhood, making a video to prove he was serious about his desire to slap him. Him and his crew didn't run into him that day, and Dolph simply replied by tweeting a laughing face and a thumbs down. Dolph did not seem fazed. Publicly at least, he brushed it off. But the beef was now visible. Yo Gotti, for his part, still tried to stay publicly above it. On March 12th, Yo Gotti still chooses not to speak on any beef between him and young Dolph, but does comment on what's going on between his label mate Black Youngsta and Dolph. He's not happy with the way Youngsta handled the situation, saying, "My advice, I don't move like that. I'm going to always tell, not only him, but any youngin' don't handle your business like this." Gotti's public position was consistent. He did not condone what Black Youngsta was doing, and he was not personally beefing with Dolph. But Dolph did not buy it. Dolph doesn't buy that Yo Gotti isn't the one encouraging his artists to go after him, and went to Instagram to gripe in a now-deleted clip. Dolph allegedly posted a message along the lines of, "I guess you still mad cause I didn't never sign with your expletive." He also brought Gucci Mane into it, suggesting that Gotti was upset because Gotti had a falling out with Gucci Mane, and was mad that Dolph kept working with Gucci. This is where the layers start to pile up. Memphis rap beefs are not just about 2 artists. They are about camps, labels, affiliations, neighborhoods, and allegedly, street politics. Every move Dolph made, Gotti's camp allegedly felt. Every move Gotti's camp made, Dolph's camp felt. And the people around both artists were not just rappers. They were allegedly connected to the broader street ecosystem of Memphis. The rest of 2016 passed with continued tension, but no major violent incidents. Black Youngsta appeared on The Breakfast Club in September and said his beef with Dolph was over. Things seemed to calm down. Then 2017 happened. In February 2017, Dolph escalated the musical side of things significantly. Dolph reinstated the feud in February 2017, explicitly naming Ho Gotti. In his diss track Play With Yo Bitch, Gotti replied with his own diss track, Don't Beef With Me, and Dolph fired back with a music video for Play With Yo Bitch, featuring a Gotti lookalike. The diss track was a line in the sand. Dolph was no longer being subliminal. He was directly disrespecting Yo Gotti by name, and the track allegedly referenced a personal relationship with one of Gotti's former partners. In the streets and in the rap world, that kind of disrespect is not easily forgiven. Then came the first shooting. The next day, Dolph's bulletproof SUV was shot at 100 times in Charlotte, NC. But it wasn't until almost 3 months later that the van involved in the shooting which Black Youngsta had rented, was discovered. In February 2017, his vehicle was shot over 100 times in Charlotte, North Carolina. Despite the attack, he performed the same night. Over 100 rounds fired at one vehicle, and the man inside survived because allegedly the SUV was armored. This was the moment the Memphis rap beef crossed from music into attempted murder, at least in the public eye. The fact that the van linked to the shooting was allegedly rented by Black Youngsta, a CMG artist, only deepened the suspicion that this was directly connected to the Gotti-Dolph beef. On 16 May 2017, Youngsta surrendered himself to the police on charges relating to the shooting of Dolph. It should be noted that Black Youngsta denied involvement. Youngsta would go on to release a song called Birthday, in which he references the shooting and alleges that Dolph had him framed. He rapped about being innocent and accused Dolph of shooting his own truck and blaming it on him. The truth of what happened in Charlotte has never been fully resolved in court, and to this day, the details remain disputed by different parties involved. But Dolph was not done surviving shootings. A few months later, in September 2017, another attempt was allegedly made on his life, this time in Hollywood, California. On Tuesday, September 26, 2017, Memphis rapper Young Dolph was shot near the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel and hospitalized in critical condition. 2 weeks later, Dolph is on the road to recovery, having survived his second shooting this year. Dolph was shot outside of a Lowe's Hollywood Hotel in LA, where Gotti's entourage was staying. Corey McClendon, 43, was arrested near the location of the shooting, but was later released. Gotti and McClendon have a past together as, in 2010, the pair turned themselves into police after a shooting occurred in a Memphis club car park. Following an argument between Gotti and OG Boo Dirty, another local rapper, Gotti was never named as a person of interest in Dolph's Lowe's Hollywood shooting. Now this is very important. Yo Gotti was initially reported as a person of interest by some outlets. Shortly after the shooting, Yo Gotti was named a person of interest by the Los Angeles Police Department. A Yo Gotti affiliate named Corey McClendon was arrested as the suspected killer, but was released without charges after spending 2 days in jail. However, the Los Angeles Police Department denied Yo Gotti as a person of interest in the shooting, clearing his name of all guilt, at least for the time being. So let us be clear, Yo Gotti was cleared. He was not charged, he was not formally accused, but in the court of public opinion and in the streets of Memphis, the speculation was intense. 2 shootings in 1 year, both allegedly connected to the Gotti-Dolph beef. Dolph survived both of them. After surviving the Hollywood shooting, Dolph leaned into the narrative. He released his second studio album, titled Bulletproof. Following the incidents, Dolph released his second studio album, Bulletproof, with the single 100 Shots as a response. The title was a reference to the Charlotte shooting, where over 100 rounds were fired at his vehicle. The lead single was literally called 100 Shots. Dolph was making art out of his near-death experiences and turning them into a brand. Artists often conveniently make headlines right before dropping something new, and the all-too-perfect timing of almost every conflict between Dolph, Gotti, and Youngsta might indicate that the rappers were using their beef for promotional purposes. But what caused the rivalry to escalate to such extremes? It's possible it was simply the result of an intense rivalry. Some observers at the time questioned whether any of this was real. Was it just marketing? Were Dolph and Gotti playing up the beef to sell records? After all, the timing of albums, diss tracks, and even shootings seemed to line up conveniently. But the bullets were real, the hospital stays were real, and the body count that would eventually accumulate was very, very real. In 2017, Dolph sat down with The Breakfast Club and offered his perspective on the beef. In 2017, Dolph sat down with The Breakfast Club to address his alleged ill will towards Gotti. "It ain't no issue," said Dolph when discussing the rumored rift. "It ain't no beef, it ain't no nothing. It's just a whole lot of misunderstandings and some stuff I don't respect." However, Dolph continued to refer to Gotti as lame throughout the interview, so Dolph publicly downplayed the beef while simultaneously calling Gotti lame. That is how Memphis works, allegedly. You say it's nothing, but the way you say it's nothing tells everyone it's everything. After the 2017 shooting in Hollywood, the beef seemed to go quieter. Both sides pulled back, at least publicly. Although the animosity between the Dolph and Gotti camps cooled, and then seemed to halt amid the COVID-19 pandemic, things exploded in fall 2021. For nearly 4 years, from late 2017 through 2021, the Dolph-Gotti beef appeared to be dormant. No new diss tracks, no new shootings, no public confrontations. The world moved on, COVID happened, Dolph continued to release music. His 5th studio album, Rich Slave, released in 2020, marked a significant milestone in his career. The album debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, making it his highest charting project. He was at the peak of his career. He was making more money than ever. He was investing in his community, giving back to the city that raised him. He donated $25,000 to his former high school, Hamilton High School, and frequently visited students to inspire them to pursue education and dream bigger. He organized an annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway in his neighborhood. Dolph was building a legacy, not just as a rapper, but as a community figure. He was living proof that you could come from Castalia Heights, stay independent, and make it. Following his breakthrough 2015 appearance on OT Genesis' hit Cut It, young Dolph dropped his debut album King of Memphis and built his Paper Route Empire (PRE) label into a market force, with other successful artists including Key Glock. And then, on November 17, 2021, everything came crashing down. November 17, 2021. A Wednesday, the week before Thanksgiving, police said 2 men got out of a stolen Mercedes-Benz and fired shots into Makita's homemade cookies, where young Dolph was making a purchase. That is the bare bones version of what happened. Now let us go through the details as they were presented in court. Years later, during the trial of one of the men convicted of pulling the trigger, during Johnson's 4-day trial, jurors heard that the aspiring rapper, who called himself Straight Drop, murdered young Dolph, born Adolph Thornton Jr. on November 17, 2021, in a brazen daylight ambush caught on video. The shooting happened at Makita's Homemade Butter Cookies, a bakery on Airways Boulevard in South Memphis. Dolph was a regular there. It was located not far from Castalia Heights, the neighborhood where he grew up. According to reports, young Dolph was also a supporter of his old Castalia neighborhood, not far from where he was shot. According to a friend, he had just purchased a semi-truckload of turkeys to give away to families in that neighborhood for Thanksgiving. He was buying cookies. He was days away from his annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway, and he walked into that bakery without security, something that has been discussed extensively since his death. A man who had survived 2 prior shootings, who had enemies, who had a bulletproof vehicle, walked into a cookie shop alone. In his startling confession, Smith, 34, testified that Big Jook had a hit on Dolph's head, and that Govan solicited him and Johnson to carry out the slaying for the payday. He described driving around South Memphis in the stolen white Mercedes, with Johnson at the wheel the day of the shooting. He said they expected to get $40,000 each from the hit, and acted immediately when they spotted Thornton driving his distinctive Corvette and pulling up to Makita's. He said they quickly turned around, parked their vehicle, jumped out and opened fire. According to the prosecution's case, this is what happened. Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith were driving around South Memphis in a stolen white Mercedes-Benz. They were allegedly on the lookout for young Dolph. When they spotted his distinctive Corvette pulling up to Makita's Cookies, they turned around. They parked, they got out, and they opened fire. Dolph, 36, had about 22 gunshot wounds scattered around his head, back, chin, neck, and arms. According to an autopsy report, they allegedly fired 22 shots while striking and killing the Paper Route Empire CEO. 22 shots. The man who survived 100 shots in Charlotte did not survive 22 inside a cookie shop. The question that everyone asked was, why? Who ordered this? What was the motive? According to testimony presented at trial, the answer allegedly goes back to the CMG-PRE rivalry and the men behind it. Shelby County Assistant District Attorney Paul Hagerman revealed Mims' alleged connection to the deadly shooting in his bombshell opening statement. Confirming the alleged motive for the first time, Hagerman said Mims, who died in a shooting outside a Memphis restaurant in January, considered Thornton an enemy after Thornton rejected multiple offers to join Yo Gotti's Memphis label, Collective Music Group, CMG. So, according to the prosecution, the motive was the rejection. Young Dolph turning down CMG was allegedly what made Big Jook, Anthony Mims, Yo Gotti's brother, view him as an enemy, and that alleged animosity reportedly festered for years, until, according to testimony, it resulted in a $100,000 hit being placed on Dolph's life. Smith testified that before the shooting, he met with Quet Hernandez Govan and Big Jook, Anthony Mims, Yo Gotti's brother, who Smith said put out a $100,000 hit on young Dolph. The hit was allegedly thought up by Big Jook, the late brother of Dolph's rival, fellow rapper Yo Gotti. On the stand, Smith said he and Johnson agreed to pay Govan $10,000 after the hit, while each gunman would take home $40,000. He claims he only received $800 of that promise before his January 2022 arrest. Let that sit for a moment. If Smith's testimony is to be believed, the 2 men who killed young Dolph did it for money. They expected $40,000 each. The middleman, Hernandez Govan, would allegedly get $10,000. The whole operation was allegedly funded by Big Jook. And here's the kicker. Hagerman alleged Big Jook placed a $100,000 price tag on young Dolph's murder. Hagerman said Big Jook approached Justin Johnson, who has since been convicted of young Dolph's killing, and offered Johnson a chance to get signed to CMG if he did it. Hagerman said Johnson was invited to Atlanta by Big Jook and Hernandez Govan. the man prosecutors say was the mastermind behind the fatal shooting of young Dolph, to get signed to the CMG music label. So, allegedly, Justin Johnson, who rapped under the name Straight Drop, was offered not just money but a music career, a deal with one of the biggest independent labels in the South, a chance to make it. All he allegedly had to do was kill young Dolph. Big Juke offered Johnson the hit in order to get signed to CMG, Hagerman alleged. When Cornelius Smith took the stand at trial, he described the day of the shooting in detail. Asked what it felt like to kill Thornton, Smith said his only concern was getting paid. "I wasn't feeling nothing at the time. I'm not gonna even lie. I wasn't feeling nothing at the time. I was just, trying to get some money," Smith testified. "I was aiming for Dolph. I shot through the glass. No remorse, no hesitation. Just a man who allegedly traded another man's life for a payday that he reportedly never even fully received." In his final words to the jury, Hagerman said Johnson was caught before, caught during, and then caught after Thornton's murder, thanks to a wealth of surveillance videos, cell phone records, and testimony from his alleged accomplice Cornelius Smith. The evidence against Justin Johnson was substantial: surveillance footage from Makita's Cookies, cell phone records, witness testimony, and Cornelius Smith, who admitted on the stand that he was one of the two shooters. Smith took the stand against Justin Johnson on the first day of the trial, admitting to killing Dolph. Smith identified both himself and Johnson in the video from Makita's Cookies on Airways BLVD. The arrest of the suspects did not happen overnight. After the shooting on November 17, 2021, there was a manhunt. Suspects were arrested after Memphis police offered a $15,000 reward for a manhunt. Justin Johnson was arrested in early January 2022. Cornelius Smith was arrested shortly after. And then later, the alleged mastermind, Hernandez Govan, was also charged. Hernandez Govan, 43, is the father of the late rapper Lotta Cash Desto. Other suspects, Justin Johnson, 24, and Cornelius Smith, 32, were indicted for the shooting. Govan's role, according to the prosecution, was as the middleman, the person who connected the shooters to Big Juke and facilitated the hit. Smith also identified Hernandez Govan as the person who set up the deal to kill Dolph. There is another defendant in this case as well. Another suspect, Jamarcus Johnson, Justin Johnson's half-brother, pleaded guilty to 3 counts of accessory after the fact in October 2023 and faces 6 to 12 years in jail. He remains out of jail on $25,000 bond until he is sentenced. Jamarcus Johnson testified against Justin at the first trial, saying he had helped out Justin by taking Justin's phone and posting to social media for him. Jamarcus said he had no part in the plan to kill Dolph, so Jamarcus Johnson allegedly took his brother's phone after the murder and posted on social media from it to create an alibi, to make it look like Justin Johnson was somewhere else at the time of the shooting. This was, according to prosecutors, an after-the-fact cover-up. Now, there is a natural question here. What about Yo Gotti himself? This is where we need to be extremely careful. Yo Gotti has never been charged with any crime related to young Dolph's murder. He has never been named as a suspect. He has never been indicted. A rep for Yo Gotti did not immediately reply to a request for comment. The prosecution's case centered on Big Juke and Hernandez Govan as the alleged orchestrators, not Yo Gotti. However, the internet has had its own trial. Social media has connected dots, made assumptions, and drawn conclusions. Many people have speculated about Gotti's level of knowledge or involvement, but speculation is not evidence. And in a case this serious, it is important to separate what was proven in court from what was alleged, and what was alleged from what was simply theorized online. What we know is this: the prosecution alleged that Big Juke, Yo Gotti's brother, put out the hit. That allegation was presented at trial through testimony from Cornelius Smith and through the prosecution's opening and closing statements. Whether Big Juke acted alone, whether he had backing from anyone else, and whether anyone beyond him knew about the plan, those questions have not been answered in court. A now retired Memphis police officer who was the lead investigator on young Dolph's murder case testified that Anthony Mims would have become a suspect in the murder had Mims not been killed. That testimony from the lead investigator is significant. It means that law enforcement was allegedly building a case against Big Juke himself, but they never got the chance because Big Juke was killed before he could be charged. And that killing is a story unto itself. On Jan 13, 2024, Anthony Big Juke Mims was killed in an assassination-style slaying outside an East Memphis restaurant. 2 years and 2 months after young Dolph was gunned down inside Makita's Cookies, the man who was allegedly behind the hit was himself shot and killed. According to the Memphis Police Department, an officer was in the area of 6385 Winchester Road around 4:15 p.m. on Saturday, Jan 13, 2024, when he heard gunshots. The officer went to the location and found 2 victims with multiple gunshot wounds, both of whom were transported to the hospital. Anthony Mims was identified as the victim, who was pronounced deceased at the hospital. A second male victim was in stable condition. The scene of the shooting was outside Perignon's restaurant and event center, where Mims was attending a repast following the funeral of a relative, Eric Bovan. Bovan, a well-known Memphis cocaine kingpin in the 1980s and head of the Bovan family, was a former partner of the aunt of Yo Gotti and Big Jook. So Big Jook was at a repast, a meal held after a funeral, for a family member who was reportedly a former drug kingpin. He was outside the restaurant, and someone pulled up and shot him dead. Police said video of the incident reveals the suspects responsible for the homicide, driving a white Ford Explorer with black wheels and dark windows. Deputy Chief Paul Wright, addressing the media in a press conference, asserted, "We believe the individual shot was targeted. This was not random violence. This was a targeted assassination." And almost immediately the speculation started. Was this retaliation for young Dolph? Another element to this is the possibility that this might be related to the murder of young Dolph in 2021. At least that's the speculation online. Cops rushed to Gotti's Memphis restaurant shortly after the young rapper was shot down himself, outside of a cookie store. This out of fear of possible retaliation. It's no secret Dolph and Gotti had beef. And now, many suspect this might be connected. Also worth noting, the location of Jook's murder is not far from Gotti's establishment. In fact, it's on the same block. This is also not very far from where Dolph's murder took place. Memphis is a city where geography matters. The fact that Big Jook was killed not far from where Dolph was killed, and not far from Gotti's own restaurant, felt deliberate to many observers. Whether it was a message, retaliation, or something entirely unrelated is still unknown. A year later, no suspects have been identified in the shooting death, and police have not released much information about the case. In response to a query from the Commercial Appeal, a public information officer with Memphis Police Department said that homicide investigators advised that no updates are available at this time. To this day, Memphis Police Department has not announced any arrests in connection with Big Jook's death, and police said they still have no suspects in the investigation that can be publicly named. The investigation is ongoing. Big Jook's final Instagram post, made just 1 day before his death, carries weight in hindsight. A photo of Mims is accompanied by what, in hindsight, is an ominous-sounding caption. "They don't want to face you, they want to snake you. Stay alert too, stay alive, watch your back at all times." Yo Gotti has not publicly commented on his brother's death. That silence from Gotti has been a subject of discussion. One of the biggest rappers in Memphis, a man who built an empire, has said nothing publicly about his brother being murdered. No statement, no tribute post that has been widely reported. Just silence. People have interpreted that silence in different ways. Some say it is strategic, some say it is grief, some say it is something else entirely. But the silence is notable. The killing of Big Jook also complicated the legal proceedings in the young Dolph case. Big Jook, 47, was fatally shot near a Memphis restaurant and event center in January. He and another victim, who survived the shooting, were at a repast, or a meal shared by the family and friends of a deceased person, typically after a funeral. No arrests have been made in Big Jook's death. Big Jook could not be charged. Big Jook could not be questioned further. Big Jook could not testify. The man who allegedly ordered the hit was now dead, and the prosecution had to build its case around the testimony of the actual shooters and the alleged middleman, Hernandez Govan. Now let us talk about the trial of Justin Johnson. In September 2024, Justin Johnson went to trial. The trial lasted 4 days. Justin Johnson was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and felon in possession of a firearm. Johnson was immediately sentenced to life in prison after the verdict for the first-degree murder charge. The key witness against Justin Johnson was his own alleged accomplice, Cornelius Smith. Admitted killer Cornelius Smith testified he and Johnson murdered young Dolph at Makita's Homemade Butter Cookies on Airways Boulevard on November 17, 2021. Smith told the jury everything: how he and Johnson were driving around that day, how they spotted Dolph's Corvette, how they pulled up, got out, and started shooting. He described the arrangement with Govan and Big Jook. He described the expected payout. The defense tried to discredit Smith. Prosecutors questioned Smith's intentions in testifying against Johnson, citing letters to his family where Smith allegedly stated he would lie to get a better deal. Smith denied this and stated he agreed to tell the truth because he had a conscience. But the jury believed Smith, or at the very least, they believed the totality of the evidence: the surveillance video, the cell phone records, the stolen Mercedes, and Smith's testimony. A jury reached the verdict during a court hearing in Memphis on Thursday, after about 4 hours of deliberation. 4 hours. That is a relatively quick deliberation for a murder case of this magnitude. The jury did not need long. Johnson never took the defense stand. Justin Johnson did not testify in his own defense. His attorney did not put him on the stand. That is a strategic decision that defense attorneys make. Sometimes it is better to stay silent than to risk cross-examination. But it also meant the jury never heard Johnson deny the charges in his own words. After the conviction, the sentencing phase came in November 2024. Judge Jennifer Mitchell sentenced Johnson to 35 years for the conspiracy charge and 15 years for being a felon in possession of a firearm, giving him a total of 50 years in prison on top of his life sentence. But 2 of the sentences will be concurrent to one another. He serves his life sentence, and then he starts serving his 35-year sentence. And then he can serve as little as 35% of that. That's essentially 11 or 12 years of that, or as much as 35 years of that, said Paul Hagerman, Shelby County Deputy District Attorney. The judge also heard from young Dolph's family before sentencing. Friday's court hearing started with an impact statement from Dolph's family. November 17, 2021 is a day that will forever impact my life. On that day, it felt like our whole world stopped. The pain of the moment was felt not only by myself and my family, but also the city and the fans around the world. In just a few seconds, a crucial part of my life was ripped away, leaving a void that will never truly be filled. These were crimes committed in our community in the middle of the day, in broad daylight with other people around for greed, Judge Mitchell said during her ruling. Greed. That is the word the judge used. A man was killed inside a bakery in the middle of the day for money. Pre-sentencing paperwork brought up in court mentioned Johnson had 5 previous felonies, 3 of which were aggravated assault. Justin Johnson was not a first-time offender. He had a history. 5 felonies, 3 aggravated assaults. And yet, according to the prosecution's theory, he was allegedly offered a music career, a chance to become a CMG artist if he carried out the killing. Johnson's attorney filed a motion for a new trial. Saying that the judge presiding over his case should not have allowed gruesome crime scene and autopsy photos that showed Dolph's body during the 4-day murder trial. That motion was filed, but the conviction has stood. Now, let us talk about the other defendants. Cornelius Smith, the admitted second shooter, is now expected to accept a plea deal. Cornelius Smith, one of the suspects involved in the killing of Memphis rapper Young Dolph, is expected to agree to a plea deal. Smith's attorney confirmed that they did not want to go to trial. He previously took the stand against 2 others in the case, Justin Johnson and Hernandez Govan, and admitted to killing Dolph in 2 separate trials. Smith testified at 2 separate trials. He admitted to killing Dolph in both. He identified himself and Johnson in the surveillance footage. He described the arrangement with Govan and Big Jook. His plea deal details have not been fully disclosed, but the plea hearing for Cornelius Smith has been reset to March 30. And then there is Hernandez Govan, the man prosecutors called the mastermind. This is where the story takes a turn that surprised many people. In August of 2025, he was found not guilty by a jury. Govan was alleged to be the mastermind behind Young Dolph's murder. "Thank you to the jury for getting this right and getting my life back," Govan said. "I knew in my heart I was innocent. Without God, I don't even think I would have made it this far. I'm just happy to be free." Govan, the man previously accused of orchestrating Dolph's death, was found not guilty on all of his charges, first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. In August 2025, not guilty. The man who the prosecution alleged connected the shooters to Big Jook, the man who Cornelius Smith identified as the one who set up the deal, a jury found him not guilty. This verdict sent shockwaves through Memphis and through the online community following the case. People had expected a conviction. The testimony from Smith seemed damning, but the jury apparently was not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. There are several possible explanations. Smith's credibility had been questioned. Those letters where he allegedly wrote about lying to get a better deal could have planted doubt. The defense may have raised enough questions about the reliability of a cooperating witness, who was himself a confessed killer. And without Big Jook alive to corroborate or deny Smith's testimony, the prosecution's case against Govan may have simply lacked the corroboration that jurors needed. Whatever the reason, Hernandez Govan walked free, and many people in Memphis and beyond have strong opinions about that verdict. In a statement posted on Instagram, Young Dolph's fiancée Mia J said, "The verdict in Justin Johnson's trial brings relief and restores my confidence in the justice system." She thanked law enforcement, prosecutors, and everyone involved for their diligent work. The past 3 years, marked by the loss of Adolph and the events leading to the trial, have been incredibly frustrating. My faith has been tested, but Adolph's tragic execution has only strengthened my resolve to fight, not only for him, but for all Black men. This is just the beginning of our journey toward achieving full justice for Adolph. Mia J's statement referenced full justice for Adolph, suggesting that even with Justin Johnson's conviction, the family did not feel that everyone responsible had been held accountable. And with Govan's acquittal and Big Jook dead and never charged, that feeling is understandable. The story of the Memphis gang war that killed young Dolph is not just the story of one murder. It is the story of what happens when the line between music and the streets disappears entirely. Let us take stock of where things stand. Young Dolph, dead. Shot and killed at age 36, inside a cookie shop in the neighborhood he grew up in. Justin Johnson, convicted of first-degree murder, sentenced to life in prison plus an additional 50 years. Justin Johnson was sentenced to 35 more years in prison for the murder of young Dolph. Justin Johnson was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and felon in possession of a firearm. Cornelius Smith, admitted shooter, testified at 2 trials, expected to plead guilty. One of the suspects charged with the 2021 murder of Memphis rapper Young Dolph was possibly set to accept a plea deal, but the case was rescheduled. The plea hearing for Cornelius Smith has been reset to March 30th. An attorney for Smith confirmed that they did not want to go to trial. Hernandez Govan, charged as the alleged mastermind, found not guilty by a jury in August 2025. Govan was found not guilty on all of his charges, first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, in August 2025. Jamarcus Johnson, Justin Johnson's half-brother, pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact. Jamarcus Johnson pleaded guilty to 3 counts of accessory after the fact in October 2023 and faces 6 to 12 years in jail. Anthony Big Jook Mims, the man allegedly behind the $100,000 hit, dead, shot and killed outside a Memphis restaurant in January 2024. Big Jook, 47, was fatally shot near a Memphis restaurant and event center in January. No arrests have been made in Big Jook's death. Yo Gotti, never charged, never named as a suspect in any of these crimes, has not publicly commented on his brother's death. Yo Gotti has not publicly commented on his brother's death. That is the scorecard. 2 men dead, 1 man convicted and locked up for life, another expected to plead guilty, 1 acquitted, 1 pleaded guilty to accessory charges, and 1 unsolved murder, Big Jook's, that no one has been charged with. The Memphis rap scene has been permanently altered by this war. Paper Route Empire lost its founder and its biggest star. Dolph released 7 studio albums while he was alive, and a posthumous LP, Paper Route Frank, arrived in 2022. He also has 4 Billboard Hot 100 hits to his name. The Memphis Trailblazer is survived by his fiancée Mia J and their 2 children. Young Dolph was 36 years old. Thornton founded the independent label Paper Route Empire in 2010, through which he signed his cousin-in-law, fellow Memphis-based rapper Key Glock. Key Glock has continued to release music in the aftermath of Dolph's death, carrying the PRE banner forward. But the loss of Dolph has been felt across the entire Memphis music ecosystem. Meanwhile, CMG has continued to operate. Yo Gotti's empire has not collapsed. Artists like Glorilla and Moneybagg Yo have continued to release music and achieve commercial success. Moneybagg Yo is leading Memphis's new wave of rap dominance. His chart-topping album A Gangsta's Pain showcased his ability to blend heartfelt introspection with hard-hitting bangers. Signed to Yo Gotti's CMG label, Moneybagg Yo continues to represent Memphis on a global scale. But the allegations made in court have cast a long shadow. When a prosecutor stands up in a courtroom and alleges that the brother of a label's founder ordered a $100,000 hit on a rival rapper, that does not go away. It does not matter that Yo Gotti was not personally charged. The association has been made in the public record, and the internet does not forget. New Memphis rapper Glorilla signed with Yo Gotti's CMG Records and was immediately hit with backlash from fans saying that she switched up due to resurfaced Twitter posts of her praising young Dolph. That incident illustrates how deep the division runs. In Memphis, you are allegedly either PRE or CMG. The lines have been drawn by blood. Fans hold artists accountable for their affiliations. A new artist signing to CMG is scrutinized for any past connection to Dolph or PRE. A new artist affiliated with PRE is expected to keep their distance from anyone connected to CMG. The feud has allegedly created a Berlin Wall through the Memphis rap scene. The broader story here is about what happens to a city when its music industry and its street culture become indistinguishable from each other. Memphis has always had this dynamic. Craig Petties, half-brother of DJ Paul, was on the U.S. Marshal's 15 Most Wanted Fugitives list before being captured in 2008. He was a member of the Gangster Disciples and allegedly the biggest drug dealer in the history of Memphis. In 2011, Petties pleaded guilty to 23 counts of violent crime and racketeering. After working with the Sinaloa cartel to build a drug trafficking empire in 5 states, DJ Paul is a founding member of 3-6 Mafia, an Oscar-winning group. His half-brother was allegedly one of the biggest drug dealers in the city's history. That is how close the music and the streets have always been in Memphis. The Dolph Gotti situation is not an anomaly. It is a continuation of a pattern. that has played out in Memphis for decades. In 2010, Lorenzen Wright, a Memphis basketball star with a connection to drug kingpin Craig Petty's, was found dead after being shot multiple times. Lorenzen Wright was not a rapper. He was a basketball player, but he was connected to the same networks, and he ended up dead. Memphis has a history of this. Successful people from the city getting caught up in violence that stems from street connections, alleged gang ties, or neighborhood conflicts that they can never fully escape. Dolph knew this. He spoke about it openly. He spoke about being targeted since he was a teenager. He spoke about the violence around him. But he also chose to stay in Memphis. He chose to stay connected to Castalia Heights. He chose to keep going back to the neighborhood, buying cookies, giving away turkeys, being visible. He could have moved to Atlanta or Los Angeles full time. He could have surrounded himself with heavy security, but that was not who he was, allegedly. He was from Memphis. He was South Memphis, and he was going to live as such, even if it cost him everything. The reaction to Dolph's death was massive. After his death, tributes from fans, artists, and community leaders poured in. Memphis-based outlet Choose 901 described him as more than just a rapper from Memphis. The hashtag #LongLiveDolph quickly spread across social media as fans shared his music, personal stories, and gratitude for his impact. The city of Memphis approved street renaming for a street in the honor of Thornton. The street was changed to Adolph Young Dolph Thornton Jr. Avenue, which is located on the intersection of Dunn Avenue and Airways Boulevard, just east of Castalia Heights and not far from where Dolph was killed. In February 2022, two Tennessee lawmakers proposed a bill which would make November 17th, the day on which Dolph was killed, the Adolph Thornton Day of Service. The bill listed several of Dolph's acts of philanthropy and described him as an exemplary gentleman and consummate professional who worked assiduously to improve the quality of life for his fellow citizens in numerous capacities. It also stated the holiday's goal is to celebrate the memory, music, and community service contributions of Dolph, and to encourage Tennesseans to help others. In the wake of his passing, his partner Mia J launched a campaign called Black Men Deserve to Grow Old, aiming to raise awareness about gun violence and support families affected by similar tragedies. This initiative has garnered widespread attention and has further solidified Dolph's legacy as a force for positive change. That is Dolph's legacy. Not just the music, but the giving back, the turkeys at Thanksgiving, the money for his old high school, the visits to talk to kids, the message that you can make it out and still come back. That is what was lost when those 22 bullets hit him inside Makita's cookies. But alongside that legacy is the other story. The story of what Memphis does to the people who come from it. The story of a city where in 2021, there were approximately 102 gangs with 1,300 gang members. A city where law enforcement agencies have been running large-scale operations to combat gang violence. The Memphis Safe Task Force announces that more than 400 affiliated gang members have been arrested since its launch. Since inception, task force operations have produced over 4,000 arrests citywide, the seizure of 637 illegal firearms, and the removal of large quantities of narcotics from circulation. These arrests include members of the Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, Young Mob, Los Serranos, Tren de Agua, EBG, Everybody Kila, Piru Bloods, Grape Street Crips, Kingsgate Mafia, and other factions of Bloods and Crips, among additional gangs. Memphis is ground zero for a cycle that repeats itself over and over. A rapper comes up, they make it, the streets follow them. Violence erupts. Someone dies, someone goes to prison. The cycle starts over with the next generation. Consider the Young Mob gang indictment that came down more recently. Larry Wilson, of Memphis, Tennessee, made his initial appearance in federal court today for his role in Young Mob, YM, a violent street gang that allegedly commits crimes including murder, assault, arson, drug trafficking, kidnapping, robbery, and narcotics trafficking. Wilson is the last of 8 Young Mob defendants charged to make his initial appearance related to this case. As alleged, this gang shot and killed a member of a rival gang in a restaurant drive-thru and robbed customers at gunpoint at another Memphis establishment. YM also receives money and income from various musical interests, with defendant Lackland being a well-known rapper who goes by the stage name Stupid Duke, a gang that generates income from music. A rapper who is also allegedly a gang member. This is the pattern. This is the ecosystem. And until that ecosystem changes, stories like Young Dolph's will continue to be told. The final unanswered question in this story is the one that looms over everything. Who killed Big Jook and why? If the prosecution's theory about the Young Dolph murder is correct, that Big Jook ordered the hit, then Big Jook's own murder could potentially be retaliation from someone in Dolph's orbit, or it could be related to something else entirely. Memphis is a city where violence has many roots, and not everything connects the way the internet thinks it does. But the timing is hard to ignore. Big Juke was killed just over 2 years after Dolph. The trial of Dolph's killers was approaching, and prosecutors were about to publicly name Big Juke as the man who allegedly ordered the hit. If Big Juke had survived, he would have allegedly been charged. He would have gone to trial. The things he knew, whatever they were, and could have come out in court. Instead, he is dead, and no one has been charged. Mim's death on John 13 became the latest in a series of hip-hop murders. Over the last 2 years since the killing of Gotti CMG rival Young Dolph in South Memphis. A series of hip-hop murders. That is what this has been. Not one isolated incident, not one beef that ended, but an ongoing chain of violence that has touched multiple people across multiple years. Ultimately, this rap beef is a sobering reminder of the thin line between entertainment and the streets, a line that, once crossed, often leaves a trail of broken families, shattered communities, and untold potential lost to violence. Young Dolph was 36 years old when he died. He had 2 children, he had a fiancée. He had a label full of artists counting on him. He had a community that looked up to him. He had Thanksgiving turkeys ready to give away. And he was killed because, allegedly, he refused to sign to someone else's label and chose to be his own man. That is the Memphis gang war that killed Young Dolph. Justin Johnson will spend the rest of his life in prison. Cornelius Smith is expected to plead guilty and join him. Hernandez Govan was found not guilty and walked free. Big Juke is dead and his killer has not been found. Yo Gotti has said nothing. And Memphis keeps going. The rappers keep rapping. The labels keep signing. The neighborhoods keep producing talent. And the streets keep taking it back. Every murder is a tragedy, and we take them all seriously, said Shelby County District Attorney Steve Mulroy. This one generated extra public interest because Young Dolph was a prominent and beloved member of the community. We will continue to fight hard to make sure that all of those responsible for his death are brought to justice. Whether all of those responsible will ever be brought to justice remains to be seen. Justin Johnson is in prison. Cornelius Smith is heading there. Hernandez Govan is free. Big Juke is dead, and the people who killed Big Juke are unknown. The cycle continues. The questions linger. And in South Memphis, on the street now named Adolph Young Dolph Thornton Jr. Avenue, the legacy of a man who refused to be owned by anyone lives on, even as the war that took his life still has chapters that are being written. Some of those chapters are being written in courtrooms right now. The plea hearing for Cornelius Smith has been reset to March 30. That date is approaching as we speak. What Smith's final sentence will be, and what additional information may come out as part of his plea, could shed more light on what happened and who else, if anyone, may have been involved. For now, what we know is this. A man from Castalia Heights built something from nothing. He made music that moved people. He gave back to the city that raised him. He refused to bend to anyone, and he paid for it with his life. The people who allegedly pulled the trigger have been convicted or are headed to plea deals. The person who allegedly ordered the hit is dead, and the man whose label, whose brother, and whose camp were at the center of it all has never been charged with anything. That is the story. And Memphis, for better or worse, will continue to be the place where stories like this begin, and too often, where they end. Long live Dolph. If you made it this far, drop a comment below with your thoughts. Who do you think is really responsible? Do you think justice has been served? And what do you think happened to Big Juke? Let us know in the comments. And if you have not already, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because this story is still developing, and when new information drops, we will be here to break it down.